What do you think about, I've had this thought of moving away from giving to nonprofits, Muslim nonprofits. And I mean specifically Muslim nonprofits that give charity. The reason I'm moving away from them, and please correct my frame of thinking if it's wrong, is because I'd like to get to the root of the problem. I would like to get to the investing in media, investing in a Muslim businessman that's trying to start something, or finance or banking and stuff like that. Is that a correct way to think about things? Because Sami Hamdi made a very similar comment on the podcast a couple weeks ago, where he said Muslims are giving 90% in charity, over $500 billion, I think, globally, over $500 billion, an entire economy in charity, where there's no one more generous than us. And Zionists were able to beat us in politics with $100 million. That means that $100 million beat $500 billion every time when it came to global politics and events.
With respect, that's a completely huge misunderstanding of the entire situation. Global Muslim expenditure on charities is $500 billion. You only have the ability, money doesn't buy anything that doesn't exist. This is a very important concept. Money does not create anything. It only buys. If I want if I want to buy R2D2, I could have $900 gazillion and I could not buy R2D2 because R2D2 doesn't exist. And the technology for R2D2 doesn't exist. And it won't exist for God knows how many years, right? You cannot buy things that don't exist. The problem is, Muslims want to put a lot of money into politics. But the basic ingredients of politics is people. The basic ingredient of politics is expertise, people who have expertise in politics, experience in politics, strategy for politics, understanding of politics. Those people don't exist in Muslim America. They exist, but what I mean by exist is like they're there, but there's like one here, one there, one here, one there. The Zionists have been doing this since 1930 something. They have an entire class of people that has a tradition that stretches all the way back to the early Zionists in America and Britain and they've been doing this for almost 100 years. When they want to invest, they have a really bright, educated, trained Zionist that they can give money to do the work. We don't.
Yeah, I mean, literally one of the most powerful people in Congress or in U.S. politics in general is Chuck Schumer.
Look at us. We don't have Muslim political strategists. Like, not a strategist, because somebody's going to be like, oh, I know this one guy who works, and then. No. When I said strategists, we don't have Muslim political strategists. We don't have Muslim political campaign officers, managers, like people who worked at high-level positions in campaigns that were successful, right? We don't have Muslim lobbyists. We don't have we don't have the people to do the work, right? One of the reasons why you don't have the people to do the work is because the money, right, goes in many different directions. By the way, this is a very important thing. When you try to when you try to look at Muslims as like, oh, there are 2 billion Muslims, and they're just a small number of Jews. And the Zionists are only a subset of Jews. And like they used such little money and such few people to do all of this, and Muslims didn't do anything, Muslims suck, right? There are 2 billion Muslims in the world that are divided into God knows how many countries. Each one of those countries is a developing country, meaning that they all have incredible amounts of priorities about how to build their own base, right? Zionists have one country. They have one project. They have one idea. They have one goal. Just one. They are a movement that is like a spear. The way a spear functions is you have a small, pointy little tip on a giant piece of wood. Why? Because you take the force of the full human body and you apply it at the tip. They are a spear. The entirety of everything is pointed at a single tip, and that tip is their state. Muslims are not spears. First of all, if we had spears, they'd be like this big. Because we don't have powerful countries, right? We're talking like, whereas them, they have the best bankers, and the best lawyers, and the best doctors, and the best comedians. They have
not anymore.
Not anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, well, they have comedians. They have the best and brightest of those, right? So their force is considerable, whereas for us, we don't have that much force. So our spears will be this big, and then they're all diluted efforts. Because I mean, with respect, okay, with respect, is a Syrian going to put the money and effort and power and time and energy behind Gaza, right? Or is he going to put it behind their families in Syria? Now, they might choose Gaza. They might choose Syria. But is either one of them a wrong choice? Is a Sudanese person, like I had family in Sudan that we had to do everything possible to get them out of Sudan. Like my grandfather's sister married and moved to Sudan, right? So we have family going way back in Sudan. My sister's married to a Sudanese person. So we had to do everything possible to get family out of Sudan. Are we going to put our money and power and effort and all that with our immediate family in Sudan? Or are we going to help in Gaza? Now you could do either. Which one's the wrong choice? The Uyghurs. Are they going to help with the Uyghur cause or the Gaza?
The Yemenis.
The Yemenis. Right? The list is it's massive.
So what do we do?
So that's what I'm saying, is we're putting the cart before the horse. We're not ready for politics. As a society, we're not ready for politics. Politics is where power is negotiated, not created. If you don't have power, you can't negotiate anything. Power is not in lobbyists and campaign managers. That's not power. That's the negotiation tools of power. Right? I'll give you a war analogy. Real power is not in guns. Guns is where power is negotiated. It's how the tools by which power is negotiated. Real power is in the economic base and the education and motivation of your population.
I don't know if you've read The Rise and Fall of the Great Powers by Paul Kennedy, but he talks about just that. It doesn't even matter if you have a powerful economy and a powerful military if your soldiers aren't educated and trained and know how to organize themselves in teams and in what's it called when they're in unit
battalions,
squads.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're going to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right. So this is there's so much that builds up power.
Yeah. Right.
It's not just we throw money at the problem and the problem goes away. That's the I almost said a thing that would get me banned from Umrah. That's the rich person who doesn't know how the world works way of thinking about power.
That was good. That was really good. I like how you did that.
That is the way somebody talks about power when they don't actually know how power functions.
Yeah.
Power is your society has to be oriented in a certain direction. It has to have the infrastructure. It has to have the institution. It has to have the people that can fund, train, and exert influence in a particular direction. And then you put money in a certain direction.
I mean, literally, they grade Russian military higher than it should be historically because of its personnel. Mm-hmm. Russian soldiers historically are highly motivated. Mm-hmm. That makes them a better army, no matter their gunship.
Absolutely. Think about Finland's defense against Russia. Right, this is before World War II. Finland beat the entire Russian army for months. Finland, right? Beat the Russian army for months. Gave them a real hell. Why? Because the Finnish population was highly motivated to protect Finland. And the Russians had just Stalin had just massacred the officers of the Russian army because he was afraid of a revolt. There's so much that goes into power. When you look at it from here, it looks obvious. This is what you have to do. When you actually get into nitty-gritty details, you realize, oh, there's so much that goes into this.
And that's why إِنَّ الْعِزَّةَ لِلَّهِ جَمِيعًا, verily honor. Or is there something about power too in the Quran?
I mean, power is not discussed like that in the Quran.
No?
It's not really discussed in the same way that we're using it.
Al-mulk?
Mulk is dominion.
Okay.
Power as, like, what is power at its core? Power is the ability to influence an outcome in the way that you want it. That's power, right? That's not really talked about in the Quran in that way.
But it really, I guess what I was trying to say is that it goes back to your point of Allah's pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many variables. There's actually an infinite amount of variables that you can't control at all, that the only one who can is Allah. And if you gain his pleasure, then he may allow you to take back a worldly dominion.
He will allow you to have the honor. If you gain the pleasure of Allah, he will give you the honor of being the flag bearers of La ilaha illallah.